Kuna hujapata hiyo link? Good afternoon. Yeah, I know I have the muting. Everyone has been muted. So, Dr. Irene, I think it's already 12.
So thank you, Mark D. I thought now that we have only 272 students, that we give them time at least to get to like 500. If we give them 5 more minutes, do you think that will be okay?
Okay, that's okay. It's okay though. So members, we are waiting for most of you to join.
Yeah, let us give them. Yes. Yes. And naweza. Oh, I had removed it because now it is covering the whole the whole window. So we'll keep university first with me this afternoon, and then welcome to this KUC111 communication skills. It is about across it is course good purpose, and the intention is actually to help you to be able to acquire and use communication skills. So your presenter is Dr. Irene Simiyu. This course is housed in the Department of English, Journalism and Mass Communication in ABB 117. What we are looking at, our first topic, which was done last week. However, because of the presidential inauguration, which we support as an institution, it was not possible to have this lesson, and so I recorded it. It is found on the e-learning platform. Once you log in, you'll be able to. However, today I want to take you through a few aspects of this lesson, because I feel that for you to be able to get a feel of it before we go on to topic 2. Now, there are a number of housekeeping issues which I would want you to adhere to for the smooth running of this lesson. One is that this lesson is offered to you through the Zoom platform and through YouTube. I am sure that 2 links have been sent. One which is the Zoom link that will accommodate 500 people. And once it is full, you can be able to access this lesson through YouTube. I also want you to know that links will be sent to you through the LMS, through Telegram, and through your class reps who have formed a WhatsApp platform through which they communicate, or they get communication from the ODEL directorate. So every time we have a lesson, a link will be sent to them, and they can share with you on Telegram or via your class WhatsApp platforms. Then secondly, unless you are requested to give a verbal response, you will be expected to keep your mics muted, your videos off, because I can see some people are in their beds. That is not of importance now that we are learning. So you'll be expected to keep your video off. and also that you should not share your screen. It is only the teacher who will share the screen so that we can have control and we can be able to learn well. I also want you to know that the contents of this course, that is the hard copy notes, are on the e-learning platform under Communication Skills KUC111, September, December 2022. So once you log there, and all of you are registered and enrolled on that platform, so once you log in, you'll be able to follow topic after topic. Some of the topics will not be available for you until you are done with the preceding topics. So you will move topic by topic together with me. I also want you to know that because this is an online course, there will be opportunities for you to interact with me through the chat. You can be able to share content on, let us say, questions or tasks which I may give in the course of the lesson. So I've seen that the chat is almost full of things that may not be related to this lesson. So I will not respond to those aspects. I wish to encourage you to use the chat to respond to tasks which I will be able to give. Now, this course has a course outline. The course outline, again, is found on the e-learning platform. It is a list of topics that are organized to fit in the semester. So if you want to know the directions we'll be taking, the skills we'll be looking at in KUC111, then look at our course outline, download it, and acquaint yourself with the topics. The course outline is also going to be very useful when you come across textbooks on communication skills, because you want to know the direction that you will read, so that you're not just reading everything. You can read along the topics that have been selected for the course in Kibaki University. Now, our first topic was on fundamentals of communication, and you all understand what we mean by fundamentals, the basics of communication. And in this topic, we wanted to understand what communication is, what are the functions of communication. We wanted to look at the elements of communication and some of the principles that have been identified by scholars regarding communication. I will also talk about the significance, why you should study this course, this communication skills course, what is important. Communication has been defined in many ways. In fact, if you Google the word, find a number of definitions popping up. If you look in a dictionary, you'll find a number of definitions of communication. And I'm sure your phone, if it's a smartphone, downloaded, it will also give you a number of definitions of communication as a word. I want to point out that communication is a Latin word. It comes from a Latin word, communicare, which means to make common or to share. Some of the other words that are related to communication are words like communion, words like communism, words like communion. Check their meanings. They have something to do with common. However, there are 4 scholars that I have identified, whom I want us to look at how they have defined communication. The first one, Wilkinson, is among the early scholars who gave a definition of communication as the process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, and behavior. So to him, communication is a process, and they are the means by which this communication happens, or this process happens, and this includes symbols, signs, and behavior. Then we have Payne, 1988, who defined as negotiation of shared meaning. What Payne brings or seems to bring out is that whenever we're talking about communication, then the people in the communication process must arrive at a point understand what they're talking about in oneness. That means they share the meaning of what. Then there is Gamble and Gamble, 1993. And these ones define communication as desirable or undesirable transfer of meaning. What they bring out, or what they seem to bring out, is that communication can happen sometimes through planned means, or sometimes without our plan. You may, for example, be dressed in a certain manner. If, for example, for us ladies, you may be dressed, you feel you're dressed neatly, but someone else that you could be getting a different meaning. Perhaps you're communicating that you are girlish, or you're communicating that you are available for some relationship or something like that. So sometimes communication happens when we desire it or when we do not even desire it. Then finally, we have Becker, who says communication is a process of creating shared understanding. So when we are engaged in communication, we are actually in a process of creating. And what are we creating? We're creating a level of shared understanding. Now, if you look at these definitions and others that you may come across, they are emerged from these definitions. One is that communication is a process. When we talk about a process, we talk about something that happens in a particular side, in a particular way, in the presence of certain elements. So because of communication being a process, it means that the elements of communication must be present for it to be happening, and it will proceed in a certain manner. I should give my students this example when I'm talking about a process. I tell them about the process of making ugali. We come from the Luya community, from Western Kenya, from Bungoma. And I know in Kenya, ugali is a staple food. When you are making ugali, there is a process. And any elimination of any part of the process may result in something that is close to ugali, but that is not ugali. For example, if you put water in a sufuria, and before the water boils, you put the flour inside and you stir, what you'll end up with, according to the Luyas who do a lot of ugali eating, they will tell you that ugali is not well done because the water was cold. There is likelihood that the ugali will have a temperature that is not to the standard of ugali eater. The ugali must be hot, so the water must be hot. Let me give you another example. You put the water in the sufuria and on a source of fire, and you wait for the water to boil, and you put the flour inside, and you do not stir it, so that it ends up forming some kind of mixture that is not well done. Then we will end up with something that is not ugali. It is close to ugali, but it is not ugali. So whenever we're saying it must proceed in a certain direction with the requisite elements being present in order to enhance the process. Then when we're talking about communication, and emerging from these definitions is that communication is an exchange of meaning. Meaning must come out of the process of communication. There must be some meaning that is being shared, and this meaning is being shared between the people involved, and it could be in the form of words, phrases, or even non-verbal communication. And we are saying communication is a system of symbols, signs, and behavior, meaning that communication is not limited to words only. We may have the symbols, we may have the signs, and even behavior as a means of communicating. We'll explore that much more as we continue with this topic. Now, scholars have also come up with graphic representation of what communication is. And the three traditional models that are known are the linear model of communication, the interactive model of communication, and the transactional model of communication. these were ways of explaining how one of them has a weakness that caused a successive model to be developed. The linear model, for example, had this thought that communicates in a straight line, where we have the sender who has a message and encodes that message in a channel, and then it is received on the other side by the receiver, so that at any one time, each of the people in the communication process, that is the sender and the receiver, each one of them plays their role just like that. They do not interchange their roles. Of course, this can happen in situations like when you're reading, you are the receiver. So there is no opportunity for you to immediately give a response to the person who wrote the newspaper article. Or you're listening to, let us say, a TV program, you're likely to be you're actually the receiver, but you may not provide a response to the sender. So that means that certain channels of communication will actually adopt the model of communication, the interactive model of communication, where the scholars felt that in any communication process, the sender and the receiver share information. There is always an interchange of information. That interaction is cyclic, so that you have the sender who encodes a message and sends it to the receiver who decodes. And after decoding, they give feedback to the sender, and the process continues like that. Now, again, they also brought in the aspect of noise, and they said there can be noise in the process of communication that can interrupt the communication process. This was made much better by the transactional model of communication. Of course, when we are transacting, we are exchanging information. So at each point, the receiver can also be a sender, and the sender will be a receiver. So information keeps moving from one point to another, and there can be so much of this interaction that sometimes you may think communication is not happening, but actually it is happening, because the two are in a place where they can share information. Now, what is the function of communication? We're saying that we have communicated ever since we were born. When you cried the first time, you communicated that you, and that is why the nurse who was helping your mother to give birth was able to declare to your parent that they have a child. If you didn't cry, that means you didn't communicate that you're alive. They would have declared you dead, or that you needed some kind of resuscitation by being put in some special machine to help you breathe and therefore cry. So every time we are communicating, whether we want to persuade, whether we want to inform, whether we want to entertain, we are doing it for 4 basic reasons. Number 1 is to be received, that is to be heard or to be read. Number 2 is to be understood. Number 3 is to be accepted. And number 4 is to get change in behavior or attitude, either in the other person or in the other people who are listening to you. So whenever we are talking about communication skills, we're talking about those skills that enable a person to be able to convey information so that they are received, so that they are understood, so that they are accepted, and so that they get action. And we do this because it's a basic human activity, it's a basic human behavior, it is something that is very human, so we enjoy. Now, I want you to know, students, that communication doesn't always happen in a straightforward manner. We have what we call barriers. That is anything that interferes or distorts our ability to send or receive messages. And these barriers are there either in the environment where we are communicating, or they on our person, that they could be, or they could be in our mind, or these barriers would be part of the culture in which we are brought up. So some of the barriers include physical, what we call physical barriers. And physical barriers are those that are in our environment, including noise. It could include weather conditions, like on a hot day and in a packed room, in a packed hall, you may struggle to understand what a speaker is trying to share, because you're also trying to ensure that you are comfortable from the heat, or in a cold place, and you are there trying to listen, you may again struggle from the heat. It could be the distance from speaker to the receiver. So when you're trying to listen, the speaker is in front. Let us say it is auditorium C. I know we are all familiar with auditorium C. So visualize that you are sitting on the balcony in auditorium C, and the speaker is in front and he's talking in a low voice, perhaps without any public address system. There's likelihood you receive information. The second barrier is psychological, has to do with the mind. It could be the mind of the person who is sharing information or the person who is receiving information. It could involve, let us say, sickness. Perhaps the person is depressed or is undergoing some psychological trauma or some issue that is affecting their mind. So what is likely to happen is that when you're sharing information with them, they are also struggling to be comfortable. If they are unwell, they have some pain in parts of their body, they're struggling to be well. So psychological barriers happen in a communication process. Thirdly, we have language. We all speak language, and communication happens through a language. So what is likely to happen is that if the speaker and the person receiving the message do not share a language, then language becomes a barrier. And it can be language, the written language or the non-verbal language. So that if in case I'm writing Japanese and you only are comfortable or you only know English, there is a possibility that even if I was saying that I'm inviting you home for a meal, you may not understand what I'm talking about, because the language is standing in between you and me. We are not at par in terms of language. Language can also be a barrier at the level of the written language, where we have the choice of words, we have the sentence structures, so that if they are not well done, the person who is reading your message is likely issues and challenges understanding you. And I usually tell my students that when we receive your scripts for marking, we are actually finding for to English, but which may not be English, but information errors, and therefore information not emerge as it ought to emerge. Language can be. We also have communities. I think Kenya is one country where we have many ethnic languages, and some of these ethnic languages have an effect on how we verbalize our information. We have what we call mother tongue interference. So when you try to speak English, what emerges is part of your mother tongue into English, and therefore distorting the information that you're trying to share. So then we have physiological barriers, and these are things to do with your body. Like we have people who are blind, therefore if you're communicating with them, then you have to be able to do it in a way that a blind person can be able to understand what you're talking about. We have people who are deaf, and they may not hear the sound that you're trying to produce. So physiological aspects of our body can actually result in barrier formation. Then lastly, we have cultural barriers. We come from communities, we have beliefs, cultural beliefs and practices. In some communities, certain things are held as being very important, while others are dismissed. Now, in our cultures, sometimes we may find that we have grown up in a culture where certain things are upheld. For example, old people are respected and young people have nothing. They can speak before the elderly. So what happens is that even if a young person has great ideas which they wish to share with the elderly, they may find a barrier because the elderly people will say, what do you know as a young person? We saw you being born the other day. What can you tell us? What can you share with us? So it is important to know that culture has a strong effect on how we communicate. It has a strong effect on what we can share. For example, in some communities, women are expected to be in the kitchen and not in front, let us say, in public places where they are sharing information. So if you went to such a community to share information as a lady, they may close their minds even to the good information you could be sharing with them, because women, children, or women have no particular thing they should share with the men and society. Now, why is it important you go through this course? Now, Babi University has, by examining your future, examining your presence in Kibabi for 4 years, will enable you to develop self-worth. It will help you, you know who you are. But sometimes when we go into a space where we have to communicate, or we go into a space where we have to share information, if we will, then we may end up feeling belittled, we may end up feeling insecure, our ego may end up being wounded. But when we are good in our communication, it is always possible to admire you, because everybody admires a good presenter. That's why we love people like, because when he speaks, he captures the imagination of everybody. We listen to him, sometimes he uses big, difficult words, but we just admire. You just see people smiling and feeling presence as he gives his speech, because whenever you are able to do well in communication, then your self-worth is improved. People respect you, and you actually find yourself well positioned for even leadership positions, for example. Number two, we study communication skills because it increases our knowledge of human relationships. We are members of our human society. As students, together with your colleagues, you communicate with your lecturers, you communicate with your parents, you communicate with staff on Kibabi University campus. So it is important for you to understand how you can be able to communicate with them in a manner that will help you receive either the information, the desire, or things like that. And we are always praying that even after you leave university, you'll be able to go into a profession where you'll work, you will interact with other people. And it will be important that when you interact with them with good communication skills. We also hope and we pray to God that you'll get into marital space, where you either be married or you'll marry. In that space, communication also takes a center stage. When people are in marriage, they must be able to communicate. And so understanding how to do it well will help you go a long way in your marital relationships. Number three, communication is an important life skill. It enhances your ability to solve problems, because you can be able to explain an issue, you can be able to articulate an issue that is facing you, and you can also be able to help other people to get a solution. It is a skill that will help you in decision where you are required to make a decision and to communicate the same. It is possible to do this through good communication skills. It is a skill that will help you to become a public speaker. You have heard, even in the recent elections, of young people who have made it, either as MCAs, as members of parliament, as senators, even as women reps. Those decisions did not just come because they sat at home. They went around articulating their agenda, articulating what they should, and they did this through skills. So communication will help you. Communication will help you to be able to develop good public speaking, and this can enable you to be able to find yourself in positions of leadership. Therefore, communication is key to a successful professional career. Whichever career you want, it will require communication. If you're a nurse, for example, you will need to be able to communicate, to share information with the patients. You'll also need to have good listening, so that you're able to get information from diagnosis and even be able to direct your patient to the right caretaker. If you are a teacher, for example, or training to be a teacher, communication will be very key and it will be part of your job, because every time you stand in class, you're sharing information. How do you do this? Your students will also come to you with their issues, and you need to be able to listen to them and to be able to provide guidance. So for every career, think of any career. Is it banking? Is it science? Is it agriculture? Is it teaching? Is it even a computer analyst or a computer scientist? You will need to have communication. And I want to say this, that poor communication leads to misunderstanding, it leads to frustration, it leads to being ignored by others, it leads to unsuccessful careers, among other negative consequences. So to help you, Kibabi University has ensured that you get this course. You go through this course so that you can improve yourself. You can improve your self-worth. You can be able to relate with other people well. You can be able to begin your journey on a successful professional career, and you can have the ear of others. It is important that what we learn in this course is not just for examination. It is practical. It is something you begin to put in practice immediately you learn. Because as you do that, you are cementing yourself as a communicator who can make an impact in society. Now, students, communication, we have already defined it as a process. And we say the process has elements or key aspects that you require for the process to be effective and for it to proceed well. Now, communication has several elements, and I do not want to go into them, but they include people. This is the source and the receiver. It includes a message, what is being shared. It includes a channel, the vehicle through which the information is shared, that is verbal, non-verbal, or written. It includes an aspect of feedback, and then it includes the encoding and decoding process. Let me dwell there for a while. When we talk about encoding, we are talking about how you package the information with the intention of sharing it. How you put it. If it's a message of sadness, for example, then you have to select the right kind of words. You have to package it in the right way to be received. And when we're talking about decoding, we are saying you're trying to make meaning out of the information you have received. So the encoding is usually the aspect that is done by the sender. while decoding is done by the receiver. So once the receiver gets information, you say, how are you? The receiver has to think before they say, I am fine, or they have to say, before they say, I am not feeling well. They will have decoded your message. Your message was, how are you? And they have to think about what is going on in their body or what is going on around before they give you the feedback. So those are the elements of communication. I also want to focus a bit on the 7 C's of communication. Scholars have come up with 7 aspects which all begin with the letter C. And the intention of these aspects is to show how you can make your communication effective. People understand what you're talking about. And the first one is clarity. This means that your communication should be clear and it should not be vague. Clear in terms of the language, clear in terms of the facts that you're trying to relay. Information that you're trying to give should be clear to the person receiving it, and then communication will have happened. Number 2, we have this. You must relay in when you're sharing information with people, give them enough details so that they're not left asking themselves what was left out, or what do I want to know about the information I have received. For example, if the lecturer says, let us meet on Wednesday, it may mean next Wednesday, it may mean Wednesday after next Wednesday, and there are very many Wednesdays. Giving a date, by giving a month, by giving a year, the information becomes complete. Number 3 is conciseness. Whenever you're sharing any information, unnecessary words may cause the listener to be confused. Go straight to the point, provide what you need the receiver to understand. Number 4 is correctness. The message should be accurate in terms of fact numbers, in terms of spelling, grammar, and punctuation if it is written, and even the timing of the message should be correct. You don't go to tell someone about your happy birthday when they are busy mourning. Let's say they are parents and you're busy telling them about your birthday. Timing should be correct. And there is consideration. You should be able to think about the receiver's emotion, the receiver's desires and problems, and how they will even respond to your message. So whenever you're making any kind of communication, think about the receiver. What's going on in their mind? What problem do they have? How will they react to your message? And then when you put your message together, it will be received effectively. Then courtesy, the message should be friendly. You should take care of the kind of words you're using to address whoever it is you're addressing. If it's a person that is senior to you, a person at the same level like a peer, if it's a person that is at a much lower level than yourself, courtesy is important because when people feel they have been treated, respond to your message effectively. But when they feel that they have been belittled, they have not been considered, their feelings have not been considered, the seniority, the position, then there's likelihood that your message will not be received. And finally, be consistent. So an effective message has consistency, there is uniformity in the facts and the sequence of information. Share the information, it is flowing in a consistent manner. It is showing the direction that you need to take. And that makes it a better message than what than a message that is confused. Now, students, I had a task here that I wanted us to look at. The task is here. It says, I am writing this letter to inform you that your airline tickets will be mailed 10 days before your scheduled departure. This has a lot of unnecessary words. In fact, 7 unnecessary words. So turn to your chart. Turn to your chart, students. I want you to eliminate, to write for me the statement without the unnecessary words. Let us see what you have. Turn to your chart. I want to give you about 5 minutes. Turn to your chart. Yeah, I can hear some people saying, pardon. Look at your screen. I've given you a statement. I'm saying revise the following statement because it is wordy. Eliminate 7 unnecessary words. And the statement is, I'm writing this letter to inform you that your airline tickets will be mailed 10 days before your scheduled departure. So I want you to write that sentence and eliminate the 7 unnecessary words, but type your answer in the chat. Type your answer in the chat. I can see some answers. Ndiema Tabitha, you're saying your airline ticket will be ready in 10 days. That is a good one. Wamalwa Job Wanjala, this letter to you will be ready in 10 days. There are some who have decided to use numerals. William Nyairo, I'm informing you that you will your ticket in 10 days time. William, you need to check. There is some repetition still. Valentine, I'm informing you that you will get your ticket in 10 days. A good number of you have gotten the answer. Your ticket will be ready in 10 days. I think that is the best answer. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. I think we can continue. I think we can continue. So that was the end of our topic 1. And thank you for listening. You can see the beautiful Kibabi University, our beautiful university. I want us to move on to topic 2. Just give me a few minutes. I share topic 2. So students, our lesson today was on the types of communication. It is a continuation of what we have been looking at. I want you to know that communication is categorized in 3 ways. Number 1, it is categorized by the number of people involved in the communication process. Number 2, it is categorized according to the channel or medium used in the process. Then number 3, it is categorized according to the direction of flow of information. So I'll look at each one of them and we'll see how it goes. So the first category is by number of people. We have, under this, we have number 1, intrapersonal communication. This is the communication that happens within oneself. It happens in the mind of a person. I'm sure you have had this kind of communication every so often, where you are thinking, should I go or should I not? Did this person see me or they did not see me? What you're doing is you are engaging in intrapersonal communication. It happens inside your mind. It is you communicating with you. And it happens all the time and amongst all of us. If it has never happened to you, I'm sure you will soon be thinking and you'll soon be communicating with yourself. Then we have interpersonal communication. Interpersonal means that there is more than one person, therefore there are 2 people, at least 2 people involved in the process of communication. Now these 2 people are likely to be in close proximity. They are likely to be quite close to each other in the process of sharing the information. And therefore this has its advantages and it also has its disadvantages. I'm sure you can be able to think of some of the advantages of interpersonal communication. Number 1 is that there will be immediate feedback. When the person asks a question, the other one can be able to respond. And also, the parties in the communication process can be able to seek for clarification from each other. They are able, if there's anything they do not understand, then they'll be able to ask and they'll get a response. However, it also has its challenges. And among the challenges are that there is a possibility that the 2 in the communication process may spend a lot of time. A lot of time will be spent perhaps even exchanging information that is not useful or relevant, or just repeating each other in the process of communication. So both the sender and the person who is receiving the information may end up just spending a lot of time together sharing information. However, it has its own advantages. Then we have small group communication. This will involve more than 2 people. To form a small group, you require about 3 to 4 people, or even a bit more. And the communication that will this situation will be such that one person will speak and the others will make their contributions. So the receivers will be many, the sender will be one person, the receivers will be many, and at every one point, there is usually one sender, unless it degenerates into noise. Usually there will be only one sender, but there will be many people receiving, and therefore likelihood of many people providing feedback. Then we have public communication. It involves one person speaking to a multitude of people, communicating to a large group of people. Of course, it has its advantages in the sense that add once to many people. You don't have to keep telling, let us say if you had 100 people, you don't have to keep facing each one of them to tell them. You tell less energy is spent sharing vital information. Of course, it has its own challenges. Likelihood of barriers emerging are greatly increased because of the number of people. There is likelihood that many of the people may only get second-hand information, or others may not even hear anything. They'll just be looking at the speaker, and there's a possibility that whatever is being shared may not be received unless something is done. For example, introduction of a public address system, the introduction of smaller groups, then the public meeting can be very effective. But we're saying it provides an avenue for information to be shared with many people. Yes?
Your slides are stuck at slide number 1. Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Now they have moved. They have moved. They were stuck at slide 1. Thank you. It's now okay.
Oh, they are stuck, eh?
Now we are at slide 4.
Off at that slide, and I was talking about which says what?
No, now we are at slide 4, which says
does it say by number of people? Okay.
No, by channel.
So we are moving to the next slide. We're saying communicate. Yes. So we are looking at how communication can be categorized by channel. And by channel, we have number 1, verbal communication. This is the use of exact words of what we call oral auditory signals, words proceeding from the mouth and shared directly. That is verbal communication, and it's likely to happen or to take the direction of most of what we have talked about. That is a small group where we have public meetings. We are likely to have verbal communication. And just as I said, the advantages of verbal communication are there. You can think of some of them, and they will include the fact that immediate response or feedback can be provided, and also that the speaker and the hearer or the receiver can be able to see the nonverbal cues that are used, the use of gestures, the use of the hands, the movements, the use of any kind of chart, something that can enhance the information can be seen because we are engaged in verbal communication, which is involves close interaction between the audience and the person who is sharing information. Then we have graphic communication. This is called visual communication because it involves things like charts, things like slides, things like pictures, which also still carry important information. Of course, usually graphic information has information that has been summarized, that the person is able, therefore, to interpret and generate information from just one visual that they can see. They have written communication, and this is the use of symbols like letters. We have things that are written to represent language on surfaces, like the phone, like the book, like the computer. We have what we call the written symbols. And these written symbols, of course, are able to pass across some information from the sender to the receiver. This written communication has its advantages and it also has its challenges. Advantages which will include the fact that the document, the written document, can be used, can be kept for future reference. So it can be pulled out and referred to. On the other hand, it has challenges in the sense that it requires some time before the information reaches the receiver. It also is faced with, it can be faced by barriers like poor spelling, poor use of punctuation marks, and such. So each one of them advantages and what we call challenges. And finally, we have the non-verbal communication. This is the use of visual or oral auditory signals that do not primarily language, where we are talking about communication through, let us say, visual expressions, communication through gestures, communication through space, communication through pose. The way you pose, the way you stand can be an aspect of communication. So non-verbal communication, just the way it means that there is no word that is used to communicate, but parts of the body are used and still some communication happens. So each one of these channels, as I've said, have their advantages, they also have their challenges. Then thirdly, communication can be categorized according to the flow of the information. How is information flowing? The information flow upwards. That is, information comes from above you. This is communication with people above you, so that you're sending information to your boss or to your instructor. You're sharing information with people who are above you in terms of rank, in terms of qualification and things like that. So that is called upward communication. Then we have horizontal communication. This is communicating with people who are on the same rank with you or on the same level, like classmates, your workmates, people who are quite close to you in terms of your abilities and such things. So that kind of communication is said to be horizontal. Then we have downward, where you communicate to the people who are below you. Then we have internal communication that takes place in organizations. Or in a university, we'll have our internal memos that provide internal communication. In the event of any information that needs to be shared, it is done through the internal memos. Then we have external communication, and this is the transfer of information to and from people outside the organization. So people write letters, they can write emails, they can also do other forms of communication they can do other forms of communication which comes into the organization with a view of sharing information. And then lastly, we also have the grapevine communication. This is informal communication, the kind of share without any kind of writing or without any kind of authority. It could be stories, it could be jokes, it could be rumors, it could be gossip. That is all grapevine communication, and it happens in any kind of institution or organization. Then we have professional communication, and we want to focus on professional communication because this is the kind of communication you will engage in or which will affect you as a member of this institution. And later on, when you go out to either look for a job, there are certain communication communications that you must be able to undertake. And so when we're talking about professional communication, we are saying they will differ in terms of the format used in writing or in conveying the communication, in the kind of language, and also in the content. And the first one is email. You can communicate by email. Email is electronic mail. It is information that is shared through the internet. And of course, both the sender and the receiver need to have email addresses. And information is usually brief. We do not write a lot of information on an email message. So the language can be depending on who you are communicating with. Usually there is not a lot of formatting issues. There is a space where you write your email, and after you hit the send button, the email will be on its way to the receiver. Then we have the memoranda or the memo. I know that your secondary is a good job of taking you through the writing of the memo. This is a document that is used to do or to engage in internal communication. And in Kibabi University, you realize that a lot of our communication will be done using memos. A memo is a brief document that has certain aspects of it that you need to understand. For example, the word to means that the document is being directed at certain groups of people as the receiver. From denotes the sender, and the sender will usually be one person or one office. And then there will be a title, a subject of the memo, which will be written in brief. And the memo will then be written below that, again in brief. And there will be the salutation at which actually has written the memo. One very important thing about the memo, it has a reference number. This reference is the one you can use when you wish to respond to the memo. You quote that reference number to show that this is the particular memo I wish to respond to, so that the receiver can then be able to give you feedback. So in Kibabi University, we have a number of notice boards. On those notice boards, you'll find memos. And I want to encourage that you make a habit of always passing near the notice boards. You will identify a new memo because usually it will be indicated new. Something will be written on it showing that it is new. Read and respond accordingly. There are times when, let us say there is an issue, let us say there is a power blackout, or there is a water shortage, or there is an issue that the administration wishes to communicate. They will do so by memo. So if you do not make a habit of passing near the notice boards, you are likely to find yourself lost. People will be doing things and you won't know what needs to be done. Let us say, for example, we have a guest speaker coming to the institution. It will be communicated to you by memo, so that now you prepare yourself and be available at the venue to be able to listen to the information that this speaker has. Then number 3, we have the application letter. This is a letter that you have been able to write at the secondary school level. It is a formal letter. It has 2 addresses. Its intention is to introduce you to an organization that is seeking your services, or where you have identified that your services will be required. So it is a letter that requires a very clear info delivered in the first sentence of the application letter. Of course, you will indicate how you came to know about the advertisement. Usually, we write application letters in response to advertisement. So you write how you came across the advertisement. Did you see it in a newspaper? Did you see a poster somewhere? Did you hear or were you told by someone about the presence of a vacancy somewhere, and therefore you are writing to inquire, or you're writing to make your interests to be known? So that is the first sentence of the application letter. In the second sentence, you do a brief introduction of yourself. Let us say I am Jamin Baraza, old graduate of Kibabi University in the School of Computing and Informatics. I have also, and then you give a bit of a summary of your acquisitions. Let us say you have been able to, you have a degree. Let us say you have undertaken a certain course. You put a brief information there that will appetize the person to be able to now consider, to begin to think about your application. The third part of your application letter will, of course, to say that you have attached to your letter your curriculum vitae or your CV, or you have attached any other other testimonials to the application letter, and which therefore you want them to look at so that they can consider you. An application letter is a brief letter. It ends with a closure that says yours faithfully, and you put your signature, and then your names. Very important about the application letter is the reference. The reference should be a summary of the contents of your letter. Usually I've seen students do this. They write the reference and say, application for a vacancy to be a teacher. If you think about that sentence, application for a vacancy to be a teacher, what you're saying is that you are applying for the school to create a vacancy for you to come and fill. That is not the right thing to do. You need to say application for the position of, let us say, an English literature teacher, application for the position of a clerk, application for the position of an electoral clerk, something like that. So you're saying exactly what you wish to be considered for. Then we have the curriculum vitae, or the CV. The CV, the curriculum vitae, is a Latin word, course of life. And I know you have been able to do a CV. You know the format of a CV. It begins with the biodata. It continues to provide your academic achievements. It goes on to look at your achievements in terms of training. It also provides your referees and any other information that may be useful for this particular job you are applying. Very important, student, is you need to remember that whenever you are sending a CV, it should be in line with the job you are applying for. For example, one of your hobbies, you should not say, I love swimming, yet the job you are applying for is to be a driver. Now, your employer or your future employer will be wondering, when will you get the time to swim, yet you are expecting to be driving, let us say, an officer around? Or you say, my hobby is doing what? My hobby is sampling different foods. And the job you are applying for is the job of being an electoral clerk, a clerk in the elections. Now, when will you sampling foods? When will you be sampling different types of foods? So it's important that you tailor it. You tailor your CV to meet the expectations of the job you're applying for. And it's also important that your CV should grow. One of the first tasks you should undertake. And I want to give you also as a task. I should go back to your room and sit down, pick a foolscap and begin to write your CV, a realistic CV that talks about you. Of course, your high achievement now will be the KCSE, but we are hoping and praying that as you continue, you'll be able to achieve your degree. But sit down and write your CV and then begin to grow that CV. You realize when you write it this evening, put it in a file, you realize that your CV will be very thin. It will be a thin CV. That is where we all begin. Once you look at it, begin to look at things that you can do to improve your CV. You can take a computer course, let us say, do some computer packages. Once you get the certificate, you put that information under your training experiences. You could realize that in Kibabi, we offer you online trainings of in various directions, undertake them, get some certification, put that under your CV that you have this ability, this skill, the skill to work online, the skill to, let us say, to do online writing, because you'll get a certificate. This you can be able to drive if you're at home, and take a driving course. Be able to drive, so that you're building, you're growing your CV. Do not just go to Kibabi, do not just be in Kibabi for going to the lecture and can't be there, but grow your CV. So your task this evening is to sit down and write your CV as it is today, realistic as it is today. Put it in your file and then begin to grow it. Every time you make an achievement, add to that CV. By the end of your 4 years, you realize that you will have a CV that can be taken somewhere. Usually students say, after they finish from the university, they say that most employers want people who have worked somewhere, people who have an experience, a working experience of, let us say, 1 year, like that. And then they ask, how was I to get that experience, yet I was a student? And I usually tell them, volunteer in places. If, let us say, you have been taken to the Red Cross, volunteer in places. Go to clubs. There are clubs in Kibabi University. Be a participant. Get certificates. Add to your skill. Do not just sit there and think that your CV will speak for you when it is thin. It must grow fat. I want you to take that and do that task this evening. Write it down, thin as it is, and begin to that you have been able to achieve as a person. Think of the certificates you have been able to achieve. Think of the clubs that are of interest to you in Kibabi University and participate. For example, those of you who are going to be teachers, once you begin to prepare your portfolio at 3rd year, among the things you need to add are, what are your achievements? So do not, when you hear that there is a cultural week, do not just sit back, participate. When you hear there is drama festival, music festival, participate. If you find an opportunity to learn some training, we're giving you a training for online writing, do that training, get a certificate, grow yourself, begin to grow. So you have come to a place where you can grow yourself. The other document is writing. I know that having come to Kibabi, school taught you about minute writing. I only want to remind you that you may find yourself as a member of a group, a society, a club, and people will have meetings. You may want to put this skill into practice. Report writing. In many of your courses, a report. It's important for you to be able to remember how to write a report. I've put that information for you in our LMS. And lastly, we have a letter of inquiry. A letter of inquiry is a letter that is seeking for information. It's usually it's a formal letter and usually very brief. For example, realize that you have realized that the student affairs has written to you and said you have not completed, let us say, your fees, or the admission officer said you have not completed your fees, and you know clearly that your fees is up to a certain level paid, you can write a letter of inquiry asking to be clarified, or for clarification to be made to you. How come you have this kind of fees balance, yet your knowledge or your understanding tells you the fee balance is different? So these are letters of inquiry. Again, I have put there a sample for you on the LMS. So I want to say that with that, that brings us to the end of our topic, where we have been able to look at the fundamentals of communication. We have been able to look at the types of communication. I want to repeat what I said before, that the contents for this course are available on the e-learning platform. You only need to go there, check the course, and you'll be able to see topic 1, topic 2. There could be a chat, respond to the chat, add your voice to the information that is there. It will help you become more attached to the information that we're sharing here. So with that, I want to bring this lesson to an end. I don't know whether MacD has anything to say. McDonald?
It has been a very wonderful session. We have been following you through. I got nothing to say, but I have seen the participation has been higher. On Zoom, we have hit 500, while on YouTube, we were at 150, which is a good number. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, MacD. Thank you for facilitating this. And thank you, students. Quickly log into the LMS. You'll be able to find information there. Thank you. Have a good day.